everybody, and welcome to the Ms. Behavior Podcast. I am Kurt,
And I'm Colette.
and we're recording a special edition tonight. Today is Monday, December 15th, and just 48 hours ago, the Brown University community was shattered by the shooting that happened over the weekend. And I know these things have a ripple effect in higher education. We talked about it at our work today. I think it's one of those things many campuses prepare for and you hope will never happen. Unfortunately, it did happen at Brown University, and the suspect is still at large. I think there's another photo out today, but we did lose two students who represented what sounds like the very, very best of Brown University. Ella Cook was a sophomore and a campus leader from Alabama, and Muhammad Aziz Umorzakov was a freshman international student from Uzbekistan who had aspirations to become a neurosurgeon. Just tragic all around. Colette, did you talk about this at work today with anybody? Did it come up in conversation, or did anything happen on your campus related to this?
I had a pretty full day back-to-back meeting with students and different faculty members, and no one brought it up. But I work remotely, and I bet water cooler talk was all about this. I work geographically at a place that is fairly close to Brown.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Working remotely, I felt like I might be missing out on some community stuff. How about you? You're right on the ground where you are.
Yeah, I had a couple of conversations at work today, and really it's largely just centered on the tragedy of it. And, we do tabletop exercises, we prepare for events like this, and you just hope that it never happens. Yeah, I think that this is something, we have a cabinet meeting on Wednesday, and I suspect that this will be part of the discussion just to revisit, because we have another tabletop coming up, I think, in January.
You and I talked about this on our very last episode, and I'm thinking about how different it is talking about having guns. You and I were, I think we're talking about officers having guns
Yes.
on campus, but if really for the inevitability, using that word, of violence on campus. And now, I wonder, how do you feel this week compared to when it was just a hypothetical going into those tabletops?
I don't know. I think it's still too new for me, but one of the things I was talking about with a coworker today was I had come in on the tail end of a press conference, and they were asking the president about whether or not she thought this would change how they do things on campus. Like the fact that the buildings were unlocked during finals week, which, to me, it's a common practice. Like our buildings aren't locked most of the time, except after hours. So do you completely reshape your day-to-day experience in anticipation of the worst thing happening, or do you do the common sense things? And unfortunately, on college campuses, I do think that sometimes that includes armed public safety officers. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I'm thinking back on my birthday one year. I was running late for work. I was putting my boots on and getting ready to go, and I got one of the emergency texts on my phone that it was not a practice text, and they had seen somebody on that campus with what appeared to be a rifle. A bus driver had seen somebody walking with the rifle strapped over his shoulder. So I was at home, and it now is a legendary day at that campus because the rifle turned out to be an umbrella that a student was carrying. But thank God, somebody had their heads up. But anyway, one of the lessons learned that day, so they went into everybody like lock in place, and all the doors were immediately locked electronically. Anybody that didn't make it to a building on time was locked out and could not get to safety. I still don't know what the right thing is. So that question for that president, like there's a lot of thought that goes into what keeps people safer. Did you have some thoughts about that when you heard that?
Yeah, I think immediately, it's going to be different for every campus. The last campus I worked at I would consider it an urban campus only because even though it wasn't in a big city, we had residential homes in between our classroom and office buildings. So we were embedded in the neighborhood a lot like it sounds like Brown University is. It sounds like it's within a residential neighborhood. Where I am now, we're really off the beaten path, and we occupy a square block of, in between roads. So it feels different. It feels like we have more control. It's an illusion. I know that. It's anybody can just walk on a campus and do whatever they want. Our community standards don't mean a thing at that point, unfortunately. And, on a day when you think the worst thing that we're probably going to have to deal with is, this time of year, academic dishonesty, somebody panicking and, cheating on an exam, suddenly you've got police and FBI on your campus, and you've got people sheltered in place. And I don't know if any of your TikTok feed had footage, but the students in the classroom just terrified when the police were coming around. I can't even imagine. It
Yeah.
was horrible.
Well, when you say TikTok, the last school I worked at, I was banging a drum trying to get our emergency team to put things out on Twitter or put things out on social media and not just to the emergency text line, because we were also adjacent to residents. I love that the folks from Brown, I think it was the local police chief, translated things into Spanish
Mm-hmm.
at the press conference, because there's a local population there, just like in many cities, that is Spanish speaking.
I
But
saw
if
they
there
had an
was a
ASL
shooter,
interpreter too, as well. That was nice.
just trying to be inclusive of every, like, what do you call community at that point? There are so many other people impacted. But communication networks are often internal
Mm-hmm.
and not reaching everybody who needs updates about whether the suspect has been found or not.
And I think this is a situation where also, you don't know who has a piece of information that might end up being valuable in tracking down who might be responsible. I don't. The other thing I watched in watching that press conference was it's interesting to watch how people outside of higher education, the expectations they put upon um, a college or a university. That there was one reporter in particular who seemed to think that the president should know everything that was going on that campus. And what I heard her say initially was she was on a flight to Washington, I think DC, or maybe it was Washington State. She said she was on a flight, she had just landed, turned around and went right back. So I'm sure she was playing catch up all day. Really, higher education is the community within higher education is its own ecosystem in a lot of regards, and things happen differently on those campuses. And to watch somebody kind of picking that apart, it was rough to see that.
Yeah, I would want journalists to help educate people about how complex these things are and not try to simplify it. That's one of our problems today is we're all looking for simple answers, people to blame.
Makes you rest easier, I think, if you can just draw a quick line between A and B and say, here's what happened and why. People don't like complicated, or, I think they immediately want a suspect. And, certainly you want life to go back to as normal as possible. But the reality is that this is going to shape this campus for years to come. And the community around it, and I'm guessing also the colleges and universities that are nearby. I feel bad obviously for the students who are most immediately impacted, but this becomes a part of every student who's on that campus this year. It becomes a part of their higher education narrative at this point. And it's sad that it's either ending on that note for some of them, or that it's even a part of their academic journey.
Kurt, if I'm not mistaken, I know you've done more reading about what's going on at Brown right now. I believe that there were at least a couple students that were in that room where this was not their first school shooting. Does that sound right to you?
I did not know that. No, I didn't know that.
And I wonder about the desensitization, because I was saying, like, the students I talked to today at my school did not mention it. They're stressed about finals. But I wonder if they're desensitized or if they just deal with a different level of anxiety as a normal day-to-day life than we did. And so they're always kind of scared.
I think I remember hearing, was this also very close to the anniversary of Sandy Hook? as well?
I don't know.
Because I think that, to your point, for so many kids, this is now just a part of their day-to-day life, is wondering, could this happen? And, the drills I had when I was in elementary school, it was like a tornado is going to come, or the nuclear.
Yeah.
It's such a broad array. A tornado is going to come sweep you up, or you're going to get hit by a nuclear weapon. Either one, just hide under your desk. You'll be fine. But we never prepared for a school shooting. And now I wonder, we do a lot of advertising at the beginning of the semester and throughout, but specifically when students first come to campus, around what to do if there is an active shooter. And I think part of that is, I'm assuming that students now come into college wanting to know, what is the plan if something happens here? Because I just spent 4 years in high school having this,
Hmm.
be a part of the conversation.
Even in New Zealand, where I was, where shootings are incredibly rare, I asked my host family, like, did their kids do the school shooting prep? And they do. So it's really scary worldwide that they would do that. And now this shooting in Australia, where
I
violence is so rare.
I think I heard a politician speaking yesterday from Australia and mentioned that it was the first mass shooting in Australia in 30 years, and the last one was the one that had caused them to have gun reformation legislation. So even, in an environment where you have stricter gun regulation, there's not a guarantee. It sounds very dire.
Can I ask, did your campus send something out campus wide about this today? Because I think that's a decision every campus had to make.
We did not, and I'm partly wondering. So our finals ended on Sunday, so partly I'm wondering if that was part of the decision that students were gone. But it is a good question. Did your campus?
Ours did. Pretty standard. Just a reminder about care, about resources. It did make me reminisce about the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that was right around the time that a lot of care teams formed, when
Right.
behavior teams became professionalized. But I was on a campus where the message was, this could happen anywhere. I'm not going to promise you, as the university president, that this could not happen here. Like, we all have to be vigilant and keep our eyes open, which I think is why that whole umbrella incident happened, because people knew it's okay to say something.
Yeah.
But I looked back at other campuses that I had worked on because I was curious, and one said, "Don't worry, everybody, this would never happen here." I remember just thinking about how different campus cultures shape unconsciously what those messages are.
Yeah. It seems like a state of denial to think that it could never happen on your campus, or, machismo. I don't know. Maybe both.
And how do you say that without alarming people, but actually as a call to action? I think it takes really great communicators to say, like, we're not immune from the world, but our greatest strength is loving each other.
It is. I agree. I think for a good leader, it's an opportunity to remind people that everybody plays a role in a community, and that just because somebody works there doesn't mean that, students aren't also responsible. If you see something, say something adage. When I came up through student conduct, it was very reactive. Like, my role was, somebody did something and it's my job to tell them what the policy is, and, talk to them about have the conduct meeting. But I do like that the evolution in the past, 20 years, is that this is now more of a proactive group. Like, these folks are not reacting. They are looking at patterns of behavior and saying, I'm worried about something I'm seeing, and let's connect these students to resources. And hopefully the end result is that we have fewer situations like this, that people feel like they're a part of the community. They're not feeling isolated. They feel like they have resources available to them to help. So that's been a nice change that I've seen in the past couple of, it's hard to say decades. I feel like I'm not old enough to
Hmm.
say decade.
I know.
But I have no hair, so, obviously that it's possible.
Yeah, we can own it. Years of experience. We've done our 10,000 hours. I would imagine for our conduct colleagues that they're going to see an uptick now. And already, just in the last month, as stress levels go up, we get more and more of those reports about feeling unsafe. So care teams with risk rubrics, and now those groups have split into also threat assessment teams that are separate. I can only imagine that this will lead to more reporting.
Yeah, and I think just also the uptick in people having anxiety about being on campus. And regardless of whether or not most students feel safe, there's still going to be a population that are going to be articulating that they're no longer feeling safe. And I think, care teams, conduct officers end up being the first line of people hearing about making connections with those students.
Well, this is it's not just the second case, but I'm thinking about the Idaho murders. And now this case where, as far as I know, there is not a clear suspect now. They thought there was one, but the uncertainty now of, do you send your student back to school in January? Or are there questions that you need answered before you can make that assessment? Whose decision is it?
Yeah, I saw that they canceled classes and exams, and I did wonder initially, like, if somebody had a conduct hearing scheduled, does that get canceled now too? I mean, but it sort of reframes what's important. And I'm not saying that community standards aren't important and accountability is not important, but after something like this happens, it does kind of reset what's important.
That's a great question, because the first thing that hits my gut is I don't want to cancel that meeting with that student, because the students I saw this morning, I just wanted to see them and talk about the gummy bear that made them go to the hospital the other night. I'm trying to think of what the other student was, but just to say I care about you. I'm so glad you're okay. I'm so glad you're back now. And if I'm the only administrator they see that day, I've got one shot to make them feel like they matter.
Yeah.
But I could also hear myself and think, like, God, what a giant ego jerk you are. Just let them not have to. Maybe give them the choice. Like, I'm here to meet with you, and I'd be delighted to meet you, but why don't you just pack up and go home?
Yeah, it's the how. It's not the what, I think, in that case. Like, I would definitely trust to say, like, hey, I know we're supposed to meet about this. We can punt this. Or if you just want to talk, I'm here. Like, knowing you, I'd be game. If it was me 20 years ago, I'd be like, no, dude, I'm going home.
Me too, 20 years ago. How dare you not meet with me?
I could not have had that conversation. I don't know yeah.
Yeah. Some of that is, though, I call it age privilege, that I can be a little more effusive in
Yeah.
just showing care.
I think for me, as I've gotten older, I'm still very black and white about a lot of things, but I have become much more comfortable with those gray areas and maneuvering in those. I think it allows for some level of creativity when you're meeting with students, or not feeling like you have to treat everybody exactly the same. That sounds weird. There's always nuance, and you have to approach every situation and every student differently. And I think that's not something I was accustomed to doing when I was a conduct officer.
I am, I'm doing my Enneagram coaching. And one of the questions I've brought to my coach recently is, I have boundless care about students, empathy, patience. They can do just about anything. And I'm going to be on the other end, like, still going to love you no matter what you did. And I don't have that for colleagues. And I'm thinking about the folks at Brown right now. They're on the ground, residence life folks, student affairs people, care team. And my first instinct as dean of students, would have been like, all right, gang, all hands on deck, time to go to work, not even thinking about the care that they need and the trauma that they are experiencing right now.
I thought about that too, because for me, this time of year, I feel like you're burning the candle at every available end just to get to that break that you need to reset. And these folks, they're just not going to get it. And they're going to have to jump back in January and be that amazing person that students need them to be. So I hope they find a way to take care of themselves. And I hope the Brown University folks are, it sounds like they have so many great community resources. I hope everybody who needs them is taking advantage of them.
Me too. I hope they don't get lost in the fray.
Well, this feels like a bummer of an episode right before the holidays.
I'm really glad, though, that you reached out to want to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it helps. It's a big thing to have to think about, somebody or people losing their lives on a college campus. Yeah. Tragic.
One of the students I met with this morning was talking about, say, quote unquote, independence and how hard it was to use campus resources that are there. And I would imagine that some of us are those people too in this field. And I hope that this is a great time to get some downtime to contact EAP counselors and go to that doctor's visit that you put off because you were caring about everybody else. And maybe everybody could make a New Year's resolution to just take care of themselves.
I agree. Especially our Gen X folks. I was reading an article the other day that was talking about how Gen X folks are less likely to ask for help. I think they were trying to tie it to the whole latchkey kid thing. Mm-hmm. But I could see myself in that, and yeah.
Me too. I'm so proud to be Gen X. Like, we're tough. We can handle stuff. And
I'm fine.
Yeah, if we're that tough, then toughen up and go ask for help. Mm-hmm. Do that tough thing.
Amen.
Yeah. Any other words of wisdom, thoughts as we head into the holidays?
I think you said it best. We're a community. Just take care of each other and yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Kurt. Misbehavior is written and produced by Colette Shaw and Kurt Doan. Theme music was written and performed by Kevin MacLeod from incompetech.com. You can contact Ms. Behavior at msbehaviorcollege@gmail.com. That's msbehaviorcollege@gmail.com.